Okay, so welcome everyone to our study abroad podcast series. So today we have Pramit, who went from India to Canada and then to UK. So we'll be knowing about his journey to both these countries from India. So welcome Pramit to our podcast.
Hello, Vishal. Thank you so much for inviting. I'm happy to be a part of the podcast. Thank you.
So Pramit, when was the very first time you thought that going abroad is an option for you?
Actually, I thought I'll never leave the country and I'll never leave my city. When I was doing my undergrad, I was so fond of my undergrad institution. I was in Kolkata. I read in Jadavpur University. I did my undergrad on electrical engineering. I did a bachelor's, and I never wanted to leave the city. But then, while doing some research, I came across an internship called MyTax Global Link Research Internship in Canada. That was sort of like an international summer internship award that Canada offered. And so I applied for it and I got an opportunity. So I went to Canada. I went to University of Alberta to do some summer internship research for about 4 months. And then I started liking the way they approach research and academics in general. And so then when I came back to Jadavpur in my fourth year, then I thought maybe it'll be a better opportunity for me or a better option for me to go and study abroad. And so that's when I basically decided to go.
Okay, sure. So you went for this MyTax thing and you went to Canada. So did that was Canada only option, or you applied to few more countries and Canada was the option ultimately for you?
No, because I was a part of this internship, which was a MyTax GRI. Um, they have a program that if you complete your internship satisfactorily, then the subsequent year they provide you with an opportunity to come to Canada because it was a Canada only program, and they asked me to, they gave us the opportunity to come and do post grad studies, so basically masters or PhD, and they would fund a significant amount of money for the first year of the master's or PhD, whatever you do. So that was definitely a lucrative offer. So I basically then went ahead and applied to Canadian universities only for my master's.
Okay. So it was a Canada exclusive programs which made you choose Canada as a country. So your country variable was ticked. How did you decide on the university and the course? I see that you have changed your course uh, from bachelor's to master's. So how was that decision in your case?
Right. That was quite interesting. I was enrolled in electrical engineering for my undergrad, but soon around second year, I think I started understanding that I want to go more towards or more away from the core electrical engineering fundamentals towards more like signal processing and image processing and data science and things like that. Wasn't data science too much at that point, but mostly around signal processing, image processing. And so my final year project and the little research project that I did in my undergrad was also based on image processing related areas. And so when I applied for masters, I wanted to do mostly image processing and a little bit of signal processing as well. And that's why I applied to computer science and engineering departments. I also did apply to electrical engineering departments. I applied to, I remember, 5 different universities in Canada. I applied to the top five in my area that was at the time, which was University of Toronto, University of British Columbia, Vancouver, then University of Waterloo, McGill University in Montreal, and the fifth one was University of Alberta, where I had done my summer internship as well. So, and I applied to electrical departments, also computer science departments, because it's sort of an interdisciplinary area where I could work on. So that's how I came across it.
So you applied to five colleges and like two disciplines, so almost like 10 applications, or was there an
Not
option
really
like
10. There were in some universities, I just applied to computer science, where I thought that the match was quite good because eventually in Canadian system, when you apply to universities, you are basically applying to professors. Unlike the system in American universities, in Canadian universities, basically there is no, generally speaking, maybe some departments do have exceptions, but generally speaking, the application goes to the professors instead of going to a global admission board, right? So the professors basically choose if I want to work with the student. Because the master's that I applied to was a research master's. It's called MASC. And so it was a little bit of coursework and mostly research. So then the professor fit is a very interesting area that we need to talk about and we need to think about. So that's how I applied, but generally I applied to two departments. In some universities, I applied one department because I found the faculties are more tuned towards this particular area.
Sure, sure. And how did you finally decided UBC as your final destination?
Yeah, so I had got offers from Toronto, but unfunded. I got offer from McGill, but the it was not a good fit in terms of the research because I had applied to someone and I got acceptance from someone else, and that happens all the times. But it wasn't a great fit for the research that I wanted to do. Alberta was way up north and it was too cold for me, I thought. So because Vancouver was also a bit moderate temperature and it's of course a very lovely city to live as well. Besides the fact that I had a good match with my supervisor and he was working in the area that I exactly wanted to work in. So that made it easier for me to decide and go for University of British Columbia, Vancouver.
So UBC was fully funded with a RATA kind of support for you for the 2 years.
Yes, so my supervisor, just around the time I joined, my supervisor had gotten a very big grant, like a national level grant called Brain to Speech. And this was very exciting for me to join. So he had acquired the funding for that. So I got the funding through the project. Plus, eventually, I also got some funding from the department, sort of in sort of award category. Plus, I had the MyTax funding for the first year, so that was quite good for me. So I didn't have to do anything of my own except this.
So first year, Mitex took care of the whole thing, or it was like a partial kind of.
They gave me 15,000 Canadian dollars, which was quite good for me at that time. And then my supervisor topped it up with another 5 or 10. I cannot exactly remember, but then he did top up with some grants
Okay, okay,
for
sure,
the
sure.
first
So it
year.
was like a combo kind of thing. So obviously,
That is
Mitex
right.
probably
Yes.
took care of it as a basic thing,
Yeah.
and then your
Yeah.
supervisor gave you a bit more leverage, kind of, so to top up, like let's say, come to the market standard or something. Okay, okay, sure.
Yeah.
So this was your second trip to Canada. So first was obviously to Alberta, Edmonton, and then this was to
Mm.
Vancouver. So when you were traveling from India to Canada, what were the initial surprises, shocks that you observed in the way things are done, India versus Canada?
Frankly, I was educated in an English medium school, but my English wasn't as good. And initially, I felt I needed some practice because my ear wasn't really tuned to the Canadian accent or American accent. So it took me a while to get to that stage where I can very comfortably understand whatever someone is saying. So I had to be careful about the first few months. Um, I found people are in general way more helpful, and it was a very interesting experience. I liked the experience. It wasn't really too much of a shock. I could quickly adjust to the new environments, but the flights and everything, it was an entirely new thing because it was my first time going abroad of my own. So it was really interesting.
Did you face a situation in which you were crossing a road and all the cars stopped for you?
I did, and that was indeed a surprise as well. Thankfully, the 3 4 months of my internship in Canada kind of prepared me for all these things that I was expecting, and that was one of the reasons also why I wanted to go for the internship to actually check if I should go abroad, because then that gives me a good opportunity to actually sample and see as a sort of a pilot study to see if I can cope up with it or if it basically prepared me for the next journey.
Sure, sure. Did you also do any other part-time job or internship while at UBC?
No, I did not. I had some seniors from my undergrad university in different parts of Canada, and I took advice from some of them, and they were doing PhD at the time, and they asked me not to. They said that you have come here for a purpose, so, focus solely on that. So I did not go for any part-time work or internship, particularly because my supervisor didn't like internship much. but also because I always wanted to be in academia and I didn't have much fascination towards industrial jobs, which is generally the route you take if you want to do internships. And so that's why I didn't go for internships, but I did do lots of teaching assistantships and stuffs in the university.
Sure, sure. And where did you stay in Vancouver when you went, and also in Alberta when you went for internship?
So there are different websites and stuff that I explored, like Craigslist, and the University of Alberta had, at that time at least, had a very nice system where you can email some people and they will get you subscribed to some mailing list, and you'll get emails about who is renting house, or who has house empty, or other people who are also looking for the same thing. And then that's how I got a good house and good Indian people actually who are residents there. And they basically helped me a lot in my first Canadian experience. And that's why I decided to go for the second one. And in the second one, I just explored Craigslist. And also we had a WhatsApp group for the new joinees for University of British Columbia that year. That's how I found my roommate. And then we was, we searched for houses together.
So you stayed like off campus at UBC?
I stayed off campus at UBC, about half an hour by bus initially, and then I went closer towards the later part as it became more and more important to be in the lab. So I stayed like 10-15 minutes distance from the campus.
Sure, sure. And while doing MSc at UBC, did you also get an offer to upgrade to PhD right at UBC? Was that an option given to you?
I think it's very supervisor oriented because supervisor has to permit. My supervisor did ask me, but I just wanted to finish one step and then go to the next one.
Sure, sure. And then I see that you also decided to go to PhD and you are pursuing PhD now. So how was that decision that came to your mind, and how did you decide which college, which university and professor you would like to go for?
Yeah, great. Thank you. So when I was doing my master's, it was clear to me that I wanted to do a PhD because I wanted to go down the research path and stay in academia. So um, towards the later part of my master's, let's say in my second year, third year, I started looking for opportunities. I also went to a few conferences. I came to a conference in the UK, in Brighton, and I basically explored a little bit of UK, and it felt like it's a very good place. The other thing is that I spent a long time during my masters, also because of COVID. It was around 3.5 years. Generally, research masters in Canada takes about 3 years, but it varies from lab to lab. But our lab had this tradition of having 3-4 year long masters, which also I think prepared me well for PhD. But because I had spent too much time doing my masters, I knew that I cannot go for a very long PhD because that will take a long period of my time just in academia doing research and not getting a position. So I figured out that positions in the UK and Europe for PhD, it takes lesser time because they don't have any coursework. So that's the primary reason why I decided to apply to UK. And then in the UK, I applied to um, University of Oxford, University of Cambridge, Imperial College London. I think University College London as well, but mainly these three, four areas.
Yeah. So top three, four of UK
Yeah.
universities. So I think you are used to applying to the top five, both the countries.
Um, I think I have gotten lots of rejects as well, but I think I was lucky to get this. Yeah.
Sure, sure, sure. So you lived in India, you had a bit of education in Jadavpur, then a bit of it in Canada, and now a bit of it in UK. How do you see the comparison between three continents, three countries, like some key differences that you see?
Yes, I think the academia in India, for example, when I did my undergrad, what I saw is that the emphasis was more on knowledge rather than understanding. And this is a sharp change I saw when I came to UBC, Vancouver, in Canada, for example. I saw that the questions that were set in the exams had nothing to do with the knowledge that you have in your mind, but it's most about the understanding that you gain. So you can't just mug up a paragraph or a few pages of a book and answer any of the questions that they would ask you to do. You need to have the knowledge in your mind, but you have to apply it. And I don't think the undergrad curriculum in our country mostly has that opportunity. It's more of knowledge based. That's one of the things I figured. The other thing is I found that the course curriculums in Canada and also in the UK a little bit are more project oriented, more project driven, rather than just question answers. Write an essay on this topic sort of thing. We had courses where there was no final exam in Canada, and just a project-based thing. So you have to work on a project, write a report in a sort of a publication sort of format. We had exams that was take-home exam. So you don't need to work on it in the exam hall even. You can just take it home, come back within a week and submit. So those were the harder exams I had no idea about, because it means that you can go home and explore whatever resource you have in the library, all the internet, and within a week you have to come back and answer the questions. So the professors were really, really confident that the questions were hard enough. And also we often had open book exams, which was not a thing in my undergrad that I saw. So these are the things that were quite striking from, I would say, India to Canada. One of the things that is striking from Canada to the UK, the comparison, is that in Oxford and Cambridge particularly, we have this tutorial system, which is very different from what you see in other parts of the world, which is that you have a lecture hall where hundreds of people will gather and learn about the topic, but then there is also more personalized system of learning where four people are appointed. I mean, four students are allotted to one tutor, and they'll basically take care of your further doubts. They'll help you solve assignments. They'll grade your assignments and take more personalized care of your learning procedure. So this, I think, was a very, very interesting thing. And it really helps academic learning, because then you get more sort of fine-tuned care about exact doubts. And sometimes you might be intimidated to ask questions in the lecture hall full of 100 people, but then in a room of four people, you can easily ask questions, you can get your doubts solved, and then there's more care in terms of what you're learning and what you're not. So that was really interesting.
Sure, sure. And I see that you are also going to do a postdoc now. Where are you going for that?
I'm just continuing here as a postdoc in the same lab because I think it's quite a good fit for me.
Okay, okay, sure, sure, sure. So for a layman, like for a student, who is undergrad or even a school student, if you have to explain what is like a master's, what is like a undergrad, what is like a PhD, what is like a postdoc, from your own words, maybe one or two sentences, can you explain the audience what are these stages where you pursue things and what you become after that?
Definitely. Yeah, that's a great question. Thank you for asking. Because when I was an undergrad, I had no idea. So undergrad, I would say, is understanding an area very broadly. So you don't go too much depth, but you take a discipline. Let's say I took electrical engineering, and you are getting familiarized with the different disciplines or the sub-disciplines under that particular domain, right? So you get to understand the different areas, the basic understanding of different concepts, but you don't get to delve deeper into one particular topic, right? But you get a basic idea about the topic, and you get to know that if I want to focus more on this area, these are the resources I should go to. These are the books I should read and things like that. So it's a very overall view of an area. Then comes masters, where you want to focus a little more. So there's more selective classes that you take, the courses that you take, probably like 6 or 10 or something like that, unlike 20, 30, 40 courses that you take in undergrad. And in this more focused courses, you want to delve deeper and do a more detailed study of these different disciplines. And if you are in a research master's, then you start looking at one particular subdiscipline really deeper and start understanding the different components of that discipline, that subdiscipline, and probably select one state of the art topic or one really interesting research question. You want to solve just one research question. Master's research is all about understanding how to pick a good research question in the area that you're interested in, and then try to solve that problem in to the best of your abilities, taking help from your PhDs and postdocs in the lab, your supervisor, etc. But the main learning that I had from my masters was that how do you ask the right question in terms of research? Because masters is what prepares you for research from an overall background that you get during your undergrad. Now, when you go to PhD, master's is supposed to prepare you for the PhD journey, where you start understanding how to pick questions, you start understanding what are the areas that interest you more, and so you start delving deeper into one particular area and ask questions and give better solutions to those questions. So you in PhD generally the norm is that you sort of pick three important questions in your area and you try to solve that within 3 to 6 years. That's what PhD is about. Postdoc, I have not done postdoc yet, but generally the idea is postdoc mainly prepares you for shifting from your own individual research towards the bigger picture, the larger vision that you want to see. So you are working on one particular problem, but then postdoc is supposed to look at a number of problems and the connections between problems and guiding other PhD students and preparing yourself for a faculty position where you're starting to understand how to write a grant, how to use your previous research background to find newer areas that you can contribute to. So that's what I think is kind of a comparison briefly.
Sure, sure. And those questions pretty much lead to like one paper also, right? Like in masters, one question
Yes.
will lead to one paper. PhD, three
Yes.
questions will lead to three paper. And postdoc is
Yes.
maybe assisting the professor in few papers and other
Yeah.
people.
Yes. That is exactly right. Yeah. When I say one project that will lead, I mean, ideally that is expected to lead to at least one research paper or
Sure,
more.
sure. That's great. That's great. So coming to the very last question now, what advice would you give to younger yourself?
Um, okay. So I would say focus more on quality work rather than quantity. When I was in my undergrad, I thought that if I can get more works done in terms of research, it will be more beneficial. I eventually started understanding that having just one work that has really good quality and can be published, it does really matter. If you can get a publication done in a good venue, can be a good international conference. I went for a few Indian conferences, but it doesn't really help a lot in the profile is what I saw. Rather than that, if you could go for just one proper journal paper, that I think would help. I would say the second suggestion will be network more and be aware of the opportunities. The time when I learned about the MyTax program was already a little bit late, and I was lucky I could apply, but there were many other opportunities I missed. There are different other internship opportunities you can avail. Like there is German DAAD program, there is France Charpak program, and there is in the US you have I think SN Bose program, etc., etc. You have quite a few programs, and things are increasing as well, right? Be aware of the different opportunities. The third one is the time management. You have to be really careful about time management because, like, when you come abroad, there's so many things that you need to do, like laundry and cooking and all these different kinds of things. And you have to maintain your research. You have to teach because all of the PhD students got to teach. You have to do your own research and think about your next step in life. So yeah, time management. These are the three things I would tell to myself.
So any recommendation on usage of LinkedIn for the youngsters?
Yes, I think LinkedIn is an amazing platform for connecting to people. In my time, I'm not sure, but in my time, I used to focus more on emails. So, for example, when I applied for my tax internship or when I applied for my master's or PhD, I sent hundreds of emails to professors trying to tune it as much as possible towards their research of interest and mentioning how my research of interest aligns with them to sort of see what opportunities I had. And I think you can do the same with LinkedIn. LinkedIn is probably way more efficient way of dealing with it. So definitely, not only I would say connect with other people, but also if you read something that is interesting in the area and you are interested in the area, write a summary of the thing that you read and let the others know that you are reading on it. And so that kind of shows that you have a habit of you show a track record of studying different things, basically.
Sure, sure. Thank you, Pramit, for your journey sharing and also the recommendations and the advices. So we hope our audience have learned something today. So have a good day. Thank you very much. We'll be in
Thank
touch.
you so much. Thank you. Have a good one.
Yeah.
Bye bye. Yeah.
Bye.